First of all, welcome to the channel and thank you for stopping by. When time permits, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. What we're going to look at in this video is a conversation I had with everybody's favorite light ADV rider, ADV Matt. This year, we've seen two new bikes announced, them being the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 and the Ibex or 450 MT from CF Moto. In addition to those announced and coming bikes, we also have all the spy shots and rumors and the inevitable replacement for the KTM 390 Adventure. I had the opportunity to sit down with ADV Matt, the go-to source for light ADV, and discuss these upcoming bikes. What we think of the announced bikes, what we think of the shots we've seen, what we think of the articles, and how they might fit into what is obviously a growing segment of market, light ADV. I hope you enjoy this. I really enjoyed sitting down with Matt and having this conversation.
Just for a little background, if you're not familiar, I picked up the KTM 390 Adventure at the beginning or the end of 2020. It was around August, and from there, started making content. And at the time, I think if you've seen any of Frank's videos, you'll know that I was probably the first one to do English videos on the KTM 390 Adventure. And that really, it took off and really built my channel, and I've got a pretty strong following. So I want to thank you all that tune in to all the different things that I've done with my bike, the travel I've done, the modifications that I've done, the repairs that I've done, some of the things that I've broke as I've gone through the riding that I've done. But we're at a point now where the small adventure motorcycle market is blossoming into, I think, really where we want it to be, maybe not exactly what we want it to be. So Frank had an idea that we could came up with in talking about the bikes that we are going to see coming at the end of 2024 into probably for us getting the new KTM 390 Adventure won't be until 2026. But now is a good time going into it to talk about basically the three bikes that we see is fitting in that market. And that is the Royal Enfield 450 Himalayan, the CF Moto 450, or was it NT 450, and then also the new KTM 390 Adventure, which looks like it's going to be a lot more enduro than the current one, which if you look at the current one, it's more street oriented, where this other one is going to be very off-road oriented, which is exciting. And some of the things that they've done with the engine. So we're going to talk about that over the next 45 minutes or so. Just so you know, there is a delay with the questions that come through. We will answer questions periodically, but we really wanted just to have a discussion about these bikes. So anything else you want to add, Frank?
Not really, other than I think that Matt and I were both in the same position I think a lot of people are today. Matt was coming from an incredibly heavy bike, and I was coming from a KLR 650, which was also an incredibly heavy bike. And I think over time, more and more people are embracing the lighter bike. And that's why I think these bikes that are coming up are going to be more important than the 390 was back in the day.
Yeah, I agree. So really, just because we're having a discussion about bikes, we're just going to go ahead and launch into this. And I don't think we'll go cover much of what the old 390 was in comparison. We're going to look at what's coming out new and features that are going to be on these new bikes, why we're excited about the possibilities of those. And then really at the end, we're theoretically going to put our money where our mouth is and make a choice of, if we had the ability to choose one of these bikes, which one would it be? So starting off with the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450, I find this bike to be interesting. The other bike, the 411 Himalayan, was not intriguing to me at all. Low horsepower, low suspension travel, and it was heavy as heck. 5-speed transmission. It really didn't fit for the type of riding that I'm used to, which is wide open riding in the West. I need something with a 6 gear so that I can really get the higher speeds. So with the new one coming out, TFT screen, it's got connectivity, upside down forks, almost 8 inches of travel. We're looking at 9 inches of ground clearance, which was really a problem with the old one. And then the wheel set 2117, so it still has some good off-road. The 21-inch tire will have the rollover that we're looking for and be better off-road. The fuel tank is expanded. It's up to 4.5 gallons. Still a good seat height. I think that was one of the things that was really appealing about the old Himalayan was the low seat height. It was easy. It was approachable to newer riders. And this one still comes in at 32 inches. I think it's a little bit taller than the other one, but really that's still very approachable for people that are vertically challenged. Brake wise, they've gone with bigger rotors, which is great. And then the other thing I think is cool is they've got multiple levels that are coming out with Himalayan, where the premium level will be tubeless. And I know that with the struggles I've had with tubes and having to replace tubes, I can appreciate having a tubeless wheel setup. So that is something of interest to me as well. And with this new water-cooled engine, more horsepower, more torque. So those are really the pros of it. Frank, you have anything to add as far as the Himalayan on the pros side of things?
Well, the pro I have is for the company. Like you, when I looked at the 411, there was nothing compelling. Absolutely nothing, other than perhaps it was kind of a cool retro look. But when I looked at the power and the weight, I didn't even consider it for a moment. So you've covered all the specs, and I think what that speaks to me is Royal Enfield is so very serious. I think that they're going to support this bike incredibly well because it's obvious that they went back to the drawing board. They listened to the complaints that everyone was making. It's heavy, it's slow, it's plodding. And they released what is obviously an enduro bike that, other than having an extra 20 pounds, I kind of think it's everything anyone who owns a mid-sized bike is looking for, including tubeless wheels. So it is a bike that shows the company is serious about it because they went to the drawing board and they said, all right, they want A, B, C, D, E. Let's just give it to them. So I don't know that it's necessarily for me, but damn if they didn't do a good job answering the market's need.
Yeah, the promo videos make it look pretty impressive on what it's capable of, and it'd be great to swing a leg over that. And I would imagine maybe not this year, but in 2025 when they roll out, for those of you that go to the motorcycle rallies, Overland Expos, I expect they'll have some test models there. So if you're wanting to get out and try those bikes, that might be a great place to do it and check them out. I know that the looks of the bike are a bit polarizing. I kind of like the way it looks. It's taken some of the old look and then also making it look a little bit more newer in its styling. So I am interested to see how well it does. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be stuck like we have been with all new models, where it's going to hit Europe and India at least a full model year before we'll see it. So we won't really know how it's going to perform out here in the West and the type of riding that we do, which tends to be quite a bit different than what they have in India and what they do in Europe. So, yeah. Now, some of the cons that I was looking at, even being interested in this bike, and is what is a big irritation for me, is anytime there's an airbox under the fuel tank, and that is what they've done with this bike. So if you want to change your air cleaner, you got to pull the tank. I'm not a fan of that.
Unfortunately, Matt, that is becoming a thing. I
It
had to
is.
do it with my V-Strom, and it was hell. And unfortunately, there's an engineer somewhere that said, this is not an inconvenience. I hope you all get used to it because it's kind of becoming a thing more and more.
It is, and that's why I can appreciate some of the other manufacturers, like even our KTM. It's under the seat. It's super easy. There's thought going into how to make it user friendly for the average rider, and I think that's important when looking at it, because not everybody's going to be confident or comfortable with removing their fuel tank, which means they're going to have to take it into the dealership, increasing the cost of ownership because now it's not doing your own maintenance at home. It's you're taking it in. So I think that's a pretty big downside that I think is going to weigh into people's deciding factor on whether or not to purchase this bike.
And that's a big change for the Indian market. The Indian market is not dealer networks like we have. I've spoken with a couple of gentlemen on the Facebook group from India, and primarily guys work on their own bikes or they go to a small local shop where they have to wait forever to get service. It's like perhaps this is Royal Enfield saying we want to build up our dealer network, get people in, because people buy an inexpensive Royal Himalayan, they buy a couple of tools and they take care of it themselves. So this is a strange choice to make.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just didn't have the room to fit in what they wanted in order to keep the seat height down. Maybe it would have raised the seat height and moved things around. So from an engineering standpoint, you know, that's what they decided to do. And you look at the premium brands like Ducati, and you have to pull the tank off of that to get to it on the Multistrada. So yeah, now a couple things is, you know, we really want these small adventure bikes to keep the weight down. And unfortunately, at least the reports right now is that the weight on this bike is going to be around 430 pounds for a single cylinder. That's heavy. I would have preferred to see that. If it was under 400, I think it'd be a lot more appealing, especially if you're trying to compete with KTM and what they've done with the 390 Adventure and what they're getting ready to do. It's going to make it challenging. So I think that's probably where the price point is going to make it more appealing, is some of the things, the refinements that they don't have that the KTM's do. Maybe they'll make up for it in price point.
I think we have to be fair here. The weight of the 390 has spoiled us. It's not that the 390 is common, it is significantly lower in weight than anything that's not based on a dual sport chassis. So Royal Enfield has actually come in remarkably well given that they produce heavy bikes. Any Royal Enfield I've looked at and then looked at a comparable Japanese bike, CC, wheelbase, they're always much heavier. I think that the Royal Enfield is going to come in much closer this time around to the competition than they have traditionally. And I'm not sure exactly what the reason is why they're always heavy, but again, kudos to the company, not the bike specifically, but it looks like they considered that the number one complaint or number two everyone makes about their bikes are these are damn heavy bikes. They've brought it much closer to the competition. I mean, to jump ahead, I'll be shocked if the new 390 stays under 400 pounds. I believe it'll be the lightest of the three, but I don't think we're going to be looking at the bizarre low weight that the 390 has today.
No, and we'll talk about this as we get towards the end. But they're just the changes with increased suspension travel and longer swing arm, longer forks. Those are all going to be areas where the weight goes up, and then they've increased the stroke, so the cylinder is going to be a little bit longer. So yeah, I agree with you. I do think it'll come in over 400